There are battles that come to destroy, but there are others that God allows to build eternal testimonies. If today you woke up fighting, tired, trying to understand why, know that God is already turning your pain into victory. Nothing is in vain when He is in the process. Pray in faith, stand firm. The victory that will be born from this struggle will be greater than you imagine. Prayer for those who are going through trials, for strength, faith, renewal, and spiritual turning. God turns tears into testimony. At the dawn of this day, he stands before the Lord not as one who seeks shortcuts, but as one who understands that even struggle is part of the path. He knows that the pain that visits him has not come to destroy him, but to polish him. That tears are not a sign of weakness, but seed watering the ground where the testimony will flourish. He doesn't wake up asking for escape. He wakes up asking for strength. He does not beg for an end to the battle ahead of time, but asks for the maturity to go through it with faith until God turns everything into victory. He understands that the fight is not destiny, it is a bridge. It is not a sentence, it is a process. And today, when he opens his eyes, he already recognizes God did not bring him here to humiliate him, shame him, or undo the little he managed to build. God has brought it here because there is a turning point prepared, a purpose hidden in the silence, a testimony being molded behind the scenes of the soul. Each blow that tried to overthrow him will be an argument for the miracle to come. Each dark night will be a reminder of the light he will see born. Frailty doesn't define you. It only reveals where God will act most gloriously. At this dawn, he surrenders fear, lets go of control, and presents the wounded heart to the doctor who heals without a scalpel and strengthens without demanding explanation. He repeats within himself, "Lord, turn my struggle into a testimony." And in saying that, he doesn't just pray, he prophesies. He declares that the difficult phase is not final, it is crossing. That what seemed to be the end is only the chapter that introduces the turnaround, that the desert has never been a pit, it has always been a school, and those who learn in the desert receive a victory that no one can take away. He is not ashamed to have wept, for even Christ wept. He does not condemn himself for having feared, for even prophets have been afraid. What matters is not the weakness felt, it is the God who lifts you up when it appears. His soul, tired but insistent, opens up like fertile land asking for rain, and God, who sees the secret, begins to move the invisible, not with noise, but with precision, not with human haste, but with divine perfection, not to prove something to the world, but to reveal something to the heart. Today, he doesn't wake up defeated. He wakes up under construction. The enemy tried to bury it, but forgot that seeds are also buried before they bloom. And he is seed planted by the hand of the Lord. Nothing and no one can prevent what God has decided to reveal through him. His story does not end in the fight, it matures in it. Pain is not the end point. It is a comma between promise and fulfillment. He does not walk without direction. He walks toward the victory that already exists in the spiritual realm, and that will come at the perfect time. Then he takes a deep breath and says, with silent, steadfast faith, "Lord, if the fight is the way, let there be purpose in every step. If crying is language, may heaven read every tear. If waiting is a trial, may it refine my spirit and strengthen my faith." He does not fear what will come. He only fears losing his presence, and since it remains, nothing is lost. Those who have God in the fight already carry the victory in their spirit. And as he walks through the early hours of this day, he realizes that God has not removed the struggle. He has changed the heart that runs through it. And this is already a miracle. For the greatest sign that heaven is at work is not when everything around changes, but when the soul begins to rest even in the midst of what it does not understand. He is no longer running desperately. It is walking with purpose. He is not crying out in anguish, is breathing hope. The heart that once trembled now treads firmly. The pain that yesterday seemed giant today bows before the promise. Because God didn't come into his story to watch him fight. He came in to win it with him. He understands that often the miracle begins where control ends. When he lets go of what he can't hold, God takes what no one else can solve. Today he decides to trust in the hand that opened the sea, sustained Elijah in the desert, kept Daniel in the pit, and gave Job hope. The God who turned the tomb into a resurrection stage will not allow the valley of pain to be a tomb for your faith. What seemed like defeat will be a scenario of glory. What seemed like injustice will be proof that God always honors those who remain. And when thoughts of defeat try to touch his mind, he fights not with despair, but with truth. He declares within himself that God does not throw him into the battle to abandon him in it. That no tears were wasted, no prayers were ignored, no hard day was useless. He realizes that the sky works in the deep, away from human eyes. When he thought he was standing still, God was aligning. When he thought he was forgotten, God was molding. When he thought it was the end, God was beginning a chapter that could only be born like this, with soil turned, seeds planted, and faith tested. He's even grateful for the wounds, because now he understands that some pains were deliverances, some losses were protections, some silences were preparations. Heaven has never missed time, never wasted a tear, never ignored a sincere prayer. If God delayed, it was to strengthen the heart, to refine the spiritual vision, to teach it to listen before acting, to believe before seeing, to remain before conquering. He understands. True testimony is born from the ground, from the dust, from waiting, from the valley where the ego dies and faith lives. So he decides today not to ask for an end to the struggle. He decides to ask for the courage to go through it with dignity and faith, because he knows God did not call him to survive, but to overcome. And winning sometimes is to continue when the body asks to stop. It's taking a deep breath when the pain tightens. It is choosing to believe when logic says otherwise. It is walking with slow but firm steps, knowing that every meter conquered in the valley will be a testimony on the hill. He lifts up his head and says inwardly, "Lord, if my story is used to prove your power, may I walk without giving up. If my pain teaches someone about faith, let it be an instrument of salvation. If my voucher becomes a testimony, may I pass through it with honor." And in this simple act of surrender, something changes in the spiritual universe. The enemy loses strength, the soul gains momentum, the future takes a step towards it. Because God does not fail those who remain. The struggle does not define him. The God who fights for him defines everything. And as the day progresses, he perceives discreet signs of divine care, not in grand events, but in the peace that visits him without warning, in the strength that arises when he thinks he is going to fall, in the soft voice that whispers within the soul, "I am with thee." He feels that something is being rearranged in the invisible. He hears no trumpets, sees no lightning, but feels movement in the spirit, like soil being prepared to sprout, like seed awakening under the earth. He realizes that God works in silence because true miracles are not born of noise, they are born of purpose. He learns that spiritual maturity is to keep believing even when the emotion does not follow. It's looking up, even when the weight tries to lower its head. It is to respond to fear with faith, to doubt with prayer, to fatigue with rest in God. Today, he no longer fights alone. He fights in alliance. He has the hand of the Father sustaining him, the Holy Spirit strengthening him, and the whole heaven witnessing his endurance. Every second of persistence becomes a spiritual declaration. I don't give up. Yes. There are scars, memories that hurt, nights when he was without strength even to ask for help. But these scars do not diminish him. They consecrate him. They are the mark of those who were not broken, but molded. They are the seal that what tried to destroy him strengthened him. He doesn't come out of this story as a survivor. He comes out as a witness. Pain couldn't overcome him. Doubt couldn't stop his faith. Fear didn't get the last word. The last word always belongs to God, and he understands that when God allows fighting, It is because he plans a greater victory than expected. The Lord does not waste suffering, does not ignore tears, does not play with processes. Everything he touches has a purpose. Even pain carries instruction. Even the valley brings transformation. Even the ground becomes an altar for those who learn to kneel before trying to run. He's no longer asking God to explain, he's asking God to strengthen, because he learned that faith does not live on answers, it lives on trust. As he walks, he remembers how many times he thought he couldn't stand it, and he did. How many times did you think it would be the end, and it was the beginning? How many times have you understood God's strength only when you realized that you had none of your own? At every step, he sees that the testimony will not only be about victory, but about transformation. Not just about achievement, but about character. Not just about what God has done, but about who he has become. He murmurs to the heart, like one holding fast to the rudder of his soul, "If I have to go on, I go on. If it is necessary to wait, I wait. If I have to fight, I fight." But I don't let go of God's hand. And the moment he says this, the sky registers it, angels move, the spirit is strengthened, the atmosphere changes, because the faith that decides to remain is the faith that is ready to witness. He knows God is not delaying, he is doing his best. The valley is almost over, the turnaround is being aligned, and the testimony will be no small thing. It will be living proof of God's faithfulness. And when night begins to touch the end of the day, he realizes that something profound has happened, not outside, but inside. He didn't end this journey with the answers he imagined. He ended it with the faith he needed, and that is already a victory. Because before God transforms circumstances, he transforms people. Before opening paths, he opens understanding. Before delivering a promise, he strengthens the heart that will carry it. He feels his soul firmer, not because the fight is over, but because he is different before it. Fear has lost control, anxiety has lost ground, the haste lost control. Now, he does not run as if trying to escape from pain. He walks as if he knows that it will be overcome. He learned to see beyond the battle and behold the God who rules it. Waiting is no longer a place of restlessness. It is a place of maturity. Struggle is no longer a sign of abandonment. It is a mark of purpose. He no longer asks God to prove his care. He acknowledges, in the small graces of the day, in the discreet deliverances, in the peace that springs up without explanation, in the breath that kept him standing when he thought he would fall. He got here not by the strength of his arms, but by the love that held him. And now he realizes there is no witness without a path. There is no path without pain, and there is no pain without learning when God is present. He understood that every wound transformed becomes spiritual authority. Every tear that is gathered becomes a seed of promise. Every valley crossed becomes an altar of testimony. And for this he is thankful, not only for what God will do, but for what God has already done within him. Because the battle may not be over yet, but the warrior is ready. And when the heart is prepared, victory is never far away. He closes this day as if closing a chapter, not with despair, but with dignity. He is not ashamed of the walk. He honors every step of it. For if the struggle marked nights, faith marked dawns. If pain tried to silence her hope, grace rekindled every spark of it. And today he can say, "I was not defeated, I was built." While they tried to bury him, God was planting him, and now it's a matter of time for it to flourish. Then he surrenders to rest, not as one who escapes, but as one who trusts. He puts his head on the pillow and hands over what he can't hold. He knows the God who sustained him will wake up with him tomorrow. The God who led you in the valley will lead you to the harvest. The God who allowed us to cry is the same one who will wipe away tears and raise his name in the face of victory. He whispers in his heart, with the certainty of someone who has already gone through the worst, "Lord, thank you for what has strengthened me, for what you have taught me, and for what awaits me." It transforms my struggle into testimony and my crying into harvest. I remain, I trust, I win, for you are with me. And so, while the world sleeps, the sky works, and what today was a battle, tomorrow will be a story of glory. He rests, and God acts. Amen. Comment: God is turning my fight into victory. Write your prayer request. I will pray for you. Sign up and activate the reminder for the next prayer.